Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you work, how many strategies you put in place, how much you learn, your income still stays exactly the same? In this episode, I'm going to be explaining what a wealth container actually is, how it forms, and how behaviors like urgency, overspending, and procrastination point to exactly where expansion feels unsafe. I think it's really often that when you are growing in any kind of capacity, you are working, doing all the things, working really hard, posting, launching. And then at some point, you start realizing more and more that no matter the amount of effort, you might just keep coming back down to the same amount of money, the same amount of revenue, the same amount in your bank account. And you're like, what the heck is happening? And this is where the wealth container comes into play. The wealth container essentially is the nervous system and the subconscious. It's a set point that has been kind of created long before you even thought about your business, long before you even thought about revenue goals. It's the set point that has been associated to your body of what more means. And a lot of times the wealth container doesn't even have to do with money at all. It has to do with the level of responsibility that your body feels safe with, the level of visibility that your body feels safe with. And long before you were even thinking about money in itself, there was an unconscious process that happened in childhood, generally, when we are moving through life and when we are moving through responsibility or being in relationships, and your body has decided this is what more means to me. When it comes to every single desire that you have for your business, for your life, for the amount of visibility, the marketing, the revenue goals, that is the desire that you have. And that desire is 5% of the actual result that you're going to get. The 95% that is left over is responsible for the subconscious and the nervous system, which work as a team. The subconscious is essentially all of the ideas that you've ever had around who you think you are, your relationship to success and money and visibility and being seen and responsibility. And all of that has been taken in since the ages of 0 to 12. Every single story that you have been raised with, every single conversation you have has been logged deep in the subconscious, and those stories carry a sensation, and the sensation is felt by the nervous system, and that is how the two play together. When you are now moving as an adult in your life, wanting and desiring so much more, every single thing that you say that you desire, the money, the goals, anything, is now going to run a Rolodex, essentially, into all of your unconscious. Every single conversation you had, every single thing that had to do with your past experiences around success or money or being seen. And it's either going to say, yes, we agree with that, or nope, we don't. And a lot of the times we can say that we agree with something and that we totally want it, but everything in the unconscious and everything in the nervous system is saying, hey, that's not something we feel good with. And a lot of times, you're not even aware of when it's happening. I'm actually going to give you a personal example of what this looks like so that you can understand exactly how it might be showing up for you. So whenever there's a situation that you desire, I'm going to give an example of something that I wanted in my life, which was I desire to have more visibility. And this was in my early entrepreneur days. And I would be posting and I would do all these things. And it almost felt like every single time I was about to post, every single time that I was about to do something, I was like, ooh, I felt all of this resistance in my body. I felt like all of a sudden I didn't know what to say. All of a sudden I didn't know any clarity. All of a sudden I was like, everything that I want to say isn't important anymore. And it was a very, very sneaky way of the subconscious and the nervous system saying, hey, if you are seen by the amount of people that you desire to be seen by, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be judged. You're going to be seen differently. Your family's going to see you differently. Your friends are going to see you differently. Even the people that are maybe in your working environment, everyone is going to see you differently. Now, if I had that feeling unconsciously of the fear of being judged or this fear of being seen differently, what was going to happen is the body is going to pump the brakes no matter what my actual desire is, no matter what my goal is. And how does it pump the brakes? They either show up in the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze nervous system responses. Now, Every single person is going to experience these responses pretty uniquely, but it's important to recognize that there's nothing wrong with you when this happens. And the nervous system is essentially saying, hey, we're not in alignment. Your subconscious mind is saying, hey, I don't want you seen by more people because that means things are going to be unsafe and unpredictable and unfamiliar, and I don't feel good with that. So let's pump the brakes, shall we? And that's when the nervous system comes into play and says, hey, we're going to just make sure that you don't feel important anymore and everything that you want to say doesn't make sense or doesn't feel good, so you won't post and you won't feel more visible. And when you don't have that awareness, what ends up happening is you feel like there's something maybe wrong with you. And for a long time in my life, I thought there was fundamentally something wrong with me. Why does everything feel so hard when I'm trying to grow? Why does everything feel like I'm trudging through mud when I'm trying to reach all my big goals and dreams? And I want you to know there's not a single thing wrong with you. And this is just a defense mechanism with your body saying, hey, you've met the edges of your wealth container of more visibility, of more revenue, of more responsibility, and we're just going to keep you here because this is what we feel is predictable and safe based off of every single past experience you've ever had, every story you've been told, and also keeps you in your familiar zone with your people so you don't feel ostracized or different or judged. That was just an example of visibility, but I want to actually share something very, very sneaky with you that showed up when I was reaching the edges of my wealth container about what I felt safe and comfortable with in terms of receiving revenue. There was many times in early entrepreneurship when I said, hey, I want to reach this goal. And then all of a sudden I'd reach it and then I would feel this overwhelming sense of urgency to go to Target. All of a sudden, I needed, like, there had to be something at Target that I needed. And I would go into Target and I would get all the clothes that I know I, like, consciously didn't really need, but I'd buy them. And then I'd be like, oh, I probably need new face wash. Oh, I probably need to go do this. Oh, by the way, let's go out to dinner tonight. Let's do all the things. It was this urgency unconsciously showing up right when I was about to essentially have more in my bank account. More came in, and my body was like, we don't feel good with this. Take it away. And that's where the urgency and unconscious spending would happen, so that I would just, oh so casually get back down to the same amount of money in my bank account. Now that you know what the wealth container is, and it's the subconscious and the nervous system set point of what you feel comfortable with and familiar with unconsciously to more money, more visibility, more responsibility, being seen differently, how do you audit your wealth container? We're going to take the lens of money, for example, and I want you to think about you right now in your business or wherever you are in terms of revenue. And I want you to take the last 6 months of your revenue, and I want you to think about what is the average that you are making and what is the average your bank account always tends to end up at no matter what. This will give you a generalized idea of where your set point is right now. And you can get some awareness because at this point, for the last 6 months, that's most likely what your body has been adjusting to and feels most comfortable with, even if it's not what you desire anymore. And I get this question a lot. They're like, Jamie, consciously, I want more money. Of course, I don't want to struggle financially anymore. Of course, I want more in my bank account. Of course, I want these things. Here's the tricky thing. You can desire and you can want, but what your body feels familiar with is what it will always go back down to, even if it's the thing that you don't want anymore. I have seen this again and again with clients saying, I always end up with like $200 in my bank account or $1,000 in my bank account, and I want $100,000 in my bank account. I don't want that anymore. And that's kind of this really interesting place to understand is that no matter what you desire, your body still has to feel comfortable and safe getting to that desire. So the desire alone isn't always the thing that gets us there. It's the safety in which our body feels getting there. A lot of the behaviors that you have right now are probably something that you're really familiar with. And when we have that awareness, we're able to be like, oh, actually, that behavior, that awareness is actually me meeting up against the edges of my wealth container. Number one, before we dive into any of these maybe common situations that you may be facing behaviorally, I will say one more time, and I will say it until I'm blue in the face, but there's nothing wrong with you. This is a very normal, natural body response. It makes you human. It's quite literally what makes you the most human. And so when we audit these behaviors, when we audit this awareness of when you're kind of hitting up against the edges, I want you to look through the lens of like such deep compassion with yourself and neutrality, and really notice if there's any judgment. Because the second we start judging ourselves for having a normal human experience, the nervous system is going to find ways to even activate even more, because self-judgment and also judgment from others is the number one way that our nervous system is going to start getting activated. Let's dive into the 4 nervous system responses and just a couple ways that maybe some behaviors are showing up. You might lean more towards one or the other. You might fluctuate between all, but you might have one that you normally kind of gear more towards naturally. There might be a pendulum swing, but just noticing this will be really, really great for you. So notice when you have this desire, have this goal, start doing more, are trying to achieve, or you're kind of in these stretchy experiences of maybe being seen or having a really amazing cash flow month. Maybe you just had a launch and you just had like the biggest launch ever. These are classic cases of when the nervous system's like, boop, let's just pump the brakes, babe. Just like, whoop, let's like take it back a notch. So with the freeze response, this is really, really common, like so common. You're going to start feeling maybe a little bit more tired or lack of clarity, or all of a sudden you feel like you're just like, I think I'm just going to do something else. I think I'm just going to, it's this kind of, we're going to pump the brakes and we're going to make you feel like you need to pull away. This is really, really common with entrepreneurs who are navigating any kind of processes where expansion is happening, when you're having more visibility, even another opportunity, like you get a promotion or you get an opportunity to be seen on bigger stages. This is going to be something where you're like, all of a sudden you just get really tired. And then all of a sudden you're just like, I think I'm going to just not feel like anything I want to say is important. Another thing that could actually pop up for this too is the feeling of knowing you want to do something, like you have that thing that you have on your list, like marketing or doing the post or reaching out to a client. All of a sudden you just can't get yourself to do it. It's just like this like frozen state, right? That's very, very common. Another one is the fawn response, and this is when the most important thing to this type of response is recognizing the relationship to other people. It's this relationship to self and feeling a sense of belonging in your community, to people. And this is why fawn historically has always been more of these people-pleasing responses, is because when we feel a sense of belonging and we don't feel othered or ostracized, we feel safe in the body, which is why we're always trying to move and groove to get the acceptance of other people or the approval of other people so that we can feel safe. This can show up as all of a sudden, I think I'm going to give everyone a raise right now. All of a sudden, I'm going to start moving funds in different directions. All of a sudden, I'm going to start doing more for other people instead of doing the thing that's going to help me get closer to my goals. One thing that I will say that's important to kind of note here is there's nothing wrong with wanting to share funds or to do really amazing things for other people. You just want to audit if there's an urgency energy underneath it, this feeling of, I need to do this, I have to do this, I should be doing that. Those kind of words indicate that there might be a pressure that's happening in the nervous system to feel a sense of belonging versus just open heart space energy of, this is just something that I really truly want to do and desire to do. And the energy feels open and it feels flowing. So it's a good indication between which one you're leaning more towards. Nervous system response flight is so fascinating because it almost shows up as productivity, but in a way that still keeps you hidden. It will show up in tweaking your sales page. All of a sudden feeling like you need to pivot. All of a sudden your messaging needs to change. All of a sudden we need to rework the bio. 800 times. It's this feeling of productivity without actual movement. Another thing that will show up for this is all of a sudden this feeling like you don't know enough and you need to learn and you need to now go and do more of this learning and digesting, but there's never any implementation of what you're learning. It's like, oh, yes, I've got the knowledge. I feel like I'm being productive. And it's this busy work of learning and doing, but never actually the work of implementation and the work that's going to move the needle into more visibility or more eyeballs on your business or more revenue coming in. The last nervous system response is the fight response. And this one can feel like all of a sudden you're adding more to your plate. It's this constant doing and adding more and hustling harder. It's this grit, this grind of like, okay, I'm going to get there, I'm going to get there, I'm going to get there. But there might be this, yes, you're adding in more hours and yes, you're doing more, but it's still, there's this energetic space of still not fully showing up or selling in the way that you know will move the needle or having the conversations that really matter to be able to have more visibility. So it can still feel like you're doing a lot, but not the work that's actually going to get you to where you want to go. And it's this feeling of the more I do, the more I'll achieve, but it's not the actual correct motions of doing that are going to get you closer to the money, closer to the visibility. And there is just a lot of energy of like I got to get there faster. It's a lot of urgency energy. And so the way that this can also show up is posting more often, doing more. You're actually doing the things, but you'll notice that when you were maybe in alignment and there was this excitement and fluid energy, there was clarity, there was conviction, there was this needle that was moving, and you may have seen a lot come in, maybe more visibility or opportunity or revenue. And then now we're still doing that energy, but the pieces that actually moved the needle are kind of now muted. And a beautiful way that this shows up, and I've seen this again and again, which is all of a sudden you're showing up more and doing more, but you're not talking about your offers, or you're not having the conversations that tell people what you do or how you help. So these are just awareness pieces. Again, neutrality, no place for judgment here. Very human experiences. And once you start noticing this, you can be like, oh, wow, there it is. There's actually nothing wrong with me. And then now we can get to the stage of being able to move through it. Expanding your wealth container will require you to go deeper and get curious about what your subconscious holds. The good news is that you don't have to do it alone. Inside of Currency Academy, my co-coach and I walk you through a potent 4-phase process that will help you embody your wealthiest self. You will strengthen your belief in yourself so you can fully be available for more. You can learn more in the description below. And now let's return back to the episode. I want to give you a clear example of when you have reached a specific amount of money each month and you desire to make more. Let's just use an example of $5,000 a month is what you've averaged for the last 6 months, and you really desire to make $10,000 a month. What I would love for you to do in this moment is think about that specific monetary goal that you have, and I want you to ask yourself a couple questions. What am I afraid is going to happen if I reach this revenue goal of $10,000 a month? And if you feel like, oh my gosh, Jamie, no, nothing, I want that, I desire that. The second question I want you to ask yourself is, what do I believe I will have to sacrifice to get there? This could be time with your family. This could be time with your friends. This could be maybe thinking that you're going to have to sacrifice your mental health or physical health. These key pieces are really, really, really amazing because once you have that understanding, you'll be like, oh, I actually am afraid of XYZ. And the next step we'll get to in just a moment. Another couple questions I want you to ask yourself is, what do I think is going to happen when I get there? Do I feel like I'll be seen differently? And is there anyone in my life right now that I'm afraid is going to judge me or make me feel uncomfortable about my success? Or another additional question is, who do I believe I have to become to reach that specific goal? These are just a few questions to start with. And then once you start asking these questions, you're going to start to notice maybe a question or an answer might pop up immediately. And if it doesn't, that's totally fine. A lot of the times when you're starting to do more of the self-awareness work and you're working with your nervous system and your subconscious as a full working system, a lot of times it might even take up to 24 hours to 48 hours for the answer to arrive. But when it does, you'll know. And I want to encourage you to be patient with yourself as you're asking yourself these questions. And when an answer does come up, I want you to get even more curious and ask yourself, why do I believe that? And then see if we can do that up to about 5 times. So you'll ask the question, get an answer, ask why again, up to about 5 times. You're going to come down to a pretty solid root of what we think the actual belief or limitation or fear actually is. And then you're going to ask yourself, do I actually believe that to be 100% true? And if I don't, what would I like to believe instead? This will start to give you an understanding of the behaviors that show up when you're meeting the edges of your wealth container. It'll also give you hopefully some validation and some understanding of self, that there's nothing wrong with you and that you're just experiencing real human experiences. And then it'll give you a place to start to get more inquisitive around what's happening in the unconscious, and then to be able to take the necessary steps to move forward. When we're learning new things like the wealth container or the subconscious or the nervous system, or even learning new things about yourself, my favorite thing to do is actually to be able to embed that knowledge just a little bit further into your nervous system and into your subconscious. So I'm going to teach you something that I actually teach my 7-year-old when we're helping her learn how to remember topics. So what I want you to do is I want you to tell me something that you just learned, an aha moment, something that you would love to tell a friend, or something that you were like, oh my gosh, this is my biggest light bulb moment. Being able to take what you've learned and actually saying it out loud or typing it into the comments is going to embed it a little bit further so that you can have that deeper awareness and you have more knowledge, and that it'll stay. And then when it happens, you'll be like, I know exactly what to do. All right, I'm going to be looking through the comment section very soon, and I cannot wait to write back and see what you learned and what your biggest light bulb moment is. And I think this is such an exciting thing because we're about to stretch past the limits of your wealth container, and you're going to have a lot more ease, a lot more flow, a lot more abundance, and a lot more goodness headed your way.